everyone needs to have aftercare after every sexual event.
When you get into this world of aftercare, you start learning a little bit more about that. One of the things that you actually challenge or start challenging, confronting, is that, let's say, dominant or most common definition of sex, which is usually just, penetration. So I'd like to maybe mention this quote and we can start from there. How can this translate into maybe us being able to feel more comfortable when we do this, changing our perception of solo sex, and maybe also how can we have some aftercare for ourselves to stop feeling in this weird, ashamed way that we tend to feel with these things.
Yeah. These are all great topics. I think the first one is making sex. It's just calling it all sex. I was really surprised because I am constantly telling everyone, don't fake orgasms, don't fake orgasms. And the kickback that I get from some people is like, okay, but how am I supposed to end sex then? Like, if I'm not going to get there and have an orgasm, how else would I end sex other than to fake? And it's like, no.
Maybe let's talk about it before.
Yeah. And the other thing too is if you are comfortable enough with someone to be intimate with them, you should also be comfortable enough to be like, I'm good. This was fun. I'm done. I don't want to continue in, whatever we're doing, or this didn't get me there. Let's switch to something that will, if that's what you want to do. There's so many other ways to end sex other than faking an orgasm. You don't need to do that. That's not your job. That's not some requirement to have intercourse with someone or do any sort of sexual activity with someone. And so I think when we make a commitment to, I'm never faking an orgasm ever again. If that's something that you do in your life, don't do it anymore. You are confirming to your partner that what they're doing is working when in reality it's not. It's also lying. It's not okay. I mean, the other thing, like, totally. Can you imagine if your partner was faking and how hurtful that would be if you found out? It's not a good idea. It's just not a good practice. We need to get away from that and we need to start talking about how to end sex. That doesn't mean that we can't do the things, but just know that it might be a lot harder for me to get there, or I may not get there. And, he goes into it knowing that. I go into it knowing that. If everything works out, great. If it doesn't, great. There's nothing wrong with being like, high five.
Aftercare in its broad sense, which was originally in the BDSM world, right? So the bondage, dominant, sadomasochism, submissive and dominant masochist world. And it was this idea that after a sexual scene that involved these enactments of power, that there needed to be a way for people to come back to themselves, to even out. So all of the good hormones that kick in, some people describe subspace and even a dom space when we're talking about power play, and to return back to like our kind of normal levels of functioning, aftercare took place. And aftercare can look as easy as bringing somebody a cup of water. It could be cuddling. It could be leaving somebody alone just to come back to themselves by themselves and naturally. But it really is talking about, in that realm and coming from that realm, the ability to be taken care of and have all of your needs met after a sexual encounter.
Also talking about aftercare a little bit, maybe for those who feel like, after you do it, let's say like, okay, I did it, I masturbated, but then there is this concept, well, it's usually more related to like, well, the post-sex blues, right? Which is one of the reasons why aftercare is needed. But then also when we talk about solo sex, we might experience that too, the post-sex blues. We might feel, not that well after it. Like we might feel sad, we might feel guilty, we might feel. So maybe do you have thoughts or ideas on what could be done at that moment so that you also like rewire that whole experience for yourself, and then you don't just sink into that bad feeling after actually having a good time with yourself?
I think intention is probably the biggest thing here. I know for so many people, like you said, there's that shame that's been built into this. we need to remove that. So you need to get to the roots of what's causing the shame or the guilt or anything else. Whatever those negative feelings are, you need to get to the roots of what's causing that. And then secondly, I'm a big fan of heading into something like masturbating or sexual experiences with as much intentionalness as possible. Go into it ready to give all of your attention to it. Go into it ready to like enjoy it, make it an immersive experience that is, you're planning on it. You are, because I think sometimes when we are denying that we're doing something or have negative feelings around it, or we aren't intentional about it, it's just like this dirty thing that we do and we do really quick, and it's get away from that. Make this a mindfulness practice, right? Get into it. Make it a meditation. Make it really precious self-care that you spend. It's this time that you're spending on yourself. And I think shifting your focus into like, sex is good for you in every way, right? So you're doing something that's so good for you. It's calming for your nerves. It's, you're going to get this gorgeous afterglow afterwards. Start to approach it as that and as a self-care practice and as something that you're doing intentionally with love for yourself, love for your partner. It's a totally different mindset than if it's this like dirty secret thing that you're not really supposed to be doing that you're ashamed of.
Do you think that aftercare can be a preemptive thing? Like, can it come before sex, even though we call it aftercare?
Right. I mean, yeah, pre-care, self-care, right? Engaging in care. I like to usually call things like that before sexual play, like it's extra lubricant, right? It makes the sex a little bit easier to have. However you're defining sex and whatever you're doing, it really helps, especially for femme-identified folks, right? So people who are socialized as femmes, people who identify as women, have a really horrible habit of this thing called spectatoring. And spectatoring is when people step outside of themselves. They're no longer in the moment of carnality, of physicality, pleasure, but they're already living in the future. So they're saying, after this, I need to do my laundry, check my email, feed the cat, come back, take care of the kid. Meanwhile, their body is just doing things and they're just like kind of watching these things happen. Okay, well, how much longer will this last? If I tighten here, will this end? But they're not actually enjoying the pleasure of what's going on for them because they're spectatoring. They're kind of just watching what's happening. So all of that pre-care actually is lubricant to get juices going, to get blood flowing, and to get the mind in the moment.
And is there a distinguishment between pre-care and foreplay?
So foreplay is kind of taboo nowadays because sex is so broad. It's no longer just like penile vaginal intercourse because, tag the patriarchy. We're really deconstructing that. So what some people might say is like foreplay is actually some people's sex and as far as they want to go. So yeah, we kind of threw foreplay out and like, it's all just sexual play. It's just what type of sexual play you want to engage in. Kind of like a pizza. What are your toppings that you like today?